So, in accordance here, I'm recording this on Championship Sunday. Just watched the games today, and of course, the Chiefs 17-10 over the Ravens. And of course, we just had the Niners game and a 34-31 victory over Detroit. And I figured something cool for championship weekend would be to put together an all-time great team. So I'm just going to run through that real quick, share my screen here and run through a quick little list I put together for my all-time great team. So I just picked out my team of players over the years, put together a little image and a little bit of a bio, wiki, bio in with each one. So Tom Brady at quarterback, obviously the most accomplished quarterback. I am a little bit of a bias here as a longtime Patriots fan, even prior to Brady ever becoming on the team. I had already gone to the games and been a Patriots fan back in the days where we were winning 2 or 3 or 4 games a year, and it was pretty ugly. But I think it's hard to really argue this one now as Brady being the greatest quarterback. And of course, a lot of stuff listed there about all of his accomplishments. But of course, everybody knows, he finished his career with the most passing yards, completions, touchdown passes, career quarterback wins, most Super Bowl wins, most Super Bowl MVP awards, darn near everything you can do on a football field. A nice laser focused Tom picture I threw in there. I have Barry Sanders, and I think the only real argument, now I know there's a couple other good ones, Walter Payton. There's Falk, there's Tomlinson, there's Dickerson, there's Earl Campbell guys. The only one I could see putting here and who I would have number 2 is Jim Brown, but I went with Barry Sanders just because in my 44 years of being alive, there's never been a running back like him, and he's by far the best I've ever seen. Prior to him or since Barry Sanders, there's never been a back that's been as elusive, had those moves to just turn people around, and is just a highlight film reel ready to go pretty much, So I had Barry Sanders as my favorite running back or my best running back. And then my receivers, I picked 3 receivers. I have Randy Moss at my number 1, just because I think in terms of his athletic ability, the way he changed the game, the way he changed coverages, and just his overall, again, talent, size, speed, jump ability, hands, intellect, from what I've heard from his coaches and other high caliber icons and team leaders and stars in the NFL. I have Randy Moss is just nobody again like him. Same with the other 2 really, but Calvin Johnson was another one as a physical specimen. I remember watching him at Georgia Tech in college, and I just knew right then that he was going to be a stud. I had wished at that time that our team found a way to just trade up as high. I think he went 2nd overall. It probably says right here, right? I don't know if I put that in here. Yeah, 2nd pick in the 2007 NFL draft, right? He even retired early. Not everybody is aware of that. Most people probably are that would watch this video being football fans, but he was still pretty damn much in his, I wouldn't say prime, but he was still, a top 10 receiver in the league when he retired, and probably still had some very good productive years in front of him. But probably similar to Barry Sanders, just kind of the woes of playing in Detroit. And it's funny, recording this right after they get knocked out for doing some Detroit things in terms of play calling and some things that I'm sure people will be talking about on the sports shows, right? But Calvin Johnson, another just freak. Those 2 on the outside, I mean, I don't care who you have out there, even the 2 corners I have here, I don't know if they could stop these 2 guys, and I would put them up against pretty much anybody, right? And then my 3rd guy is Jerry Rice, who I think most people have as, what did they put in the last line? 2010, he was chosen NFL Films Production as the top NFL's greatest players. Oh, in the top 100. Well, yeah, everybody knows that. I thought I was going to say something. I mean, some people consider him the greatest football player of all time a lot, and most people probably have him as the greatest receiver. And I'm not saying he's not, definitely in terms of the accomplishments, but I don't think he did it, and to Jerry's credit, he did a lot with longevity, which is great. He did a lot with work ethic. He wasn't the most physically gifted guy. And kind of like Moss, he went a little deeper in the draft. I want to say Moss went 21. Rice either went 16 or 19, and the 49ers traded up and took the Patriots pick to draft him. So that's something I didn't know until, like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago when I was watching something on that on like draft day, trades that turned out to be historic. And I was like, oh my God, Patriots could have had him there, and they didn't get much in return. It was like they dropped down 3 picks and got like a 4th rounder on top. It was like nothing, especially with who they got. But yeah, I mean, Rice did a lot with work ethic. He outworked everybody, super smart, very, very reliable. And I would love him with these two guys on this type of team. Rice would be more my slot guy, my more guy running slants. I know Rice was an outside vertical threat, but he was great at going across the middle and route running and precise. And we have two, 6'5" or better guys on the outside with crazy leaping ability. That with Rice would be pretty much unstoppable. And then you throw in the tight end. I have Gronkowski. I think in his prime, by far, right? It's hard to say by far. Tony Gonzalez, really, really good. Why am I drawing a blank on the other really, really good one? Obviously, I've heard people mention Kellen Winslow in here. I don't know if there was as much longevity, and that was like right before my day, a little bit before my time, Kellen Winslow. Gates definitely gets some consideration and had a really long career. I know Kelsey's playing great right now and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, so he'll be in the conversation at some point. But I have Gronk there. Offensive line, I have left tackle Anthony Munoz. Again, 13 seasons with the Bengals. I just left it short, so it didn't show all his Pro Bowls and accolades, but I think he's pretty well renowned as one of, if not the best tackle in NFL history. I have Bruce Matthews at the left guard. Played most of his career for Houston or Tennessee when they changed, but he was back on the Oilers. And it says there, excuse me, quite a few games, 99 at left guard, right? 87 at center, 67 at right guard. So the one other thing I could have done is, if I scroll down a little more, I'll mention one snub I put on here is Larry Allen. I could have had him at left guard and moved Bruce to center because he did have, close to the amount of the same games. But I tried to play people and only pick people at the position that they played the most games logged. But yeah, a total of 293. So again, 99 there, 87 there, 67 is that guard, 22 is tackle, 17. So, I mean, basically, if you take that, it's pretty much 3 full seasons as a tackle, even though he played a majority of his career as a guard and center inside, just being a great offensive lineman, big boy. But I went with Jim Otto, as he was known. I didn't actually know his full name was James Edwin Otto because, again, way before my day. But American professional football player, played with the Raiders. 15 seasons, played college football at Miami, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1980 in his first year of eligibility. Going back and talking to some people older than me that were fans and doing a little research, I thought he was the best pick. I know there's Mike Webster's a great pick here. Again, sliding Bruce Matthews over to center would still be excellent, and putting Larry Allen at left guard. And then at right guard, I have, there's the picture, obviously, of Jim Otto there, and it's the old style face mask. Those things just say like, don't F with me, you know what I mean? I have John Hannah. A lot of people think is the greatest guard of all time, certainly in the debate with Allen and Matthews, who's on this list here, I would say. John Hannah was a great player for the Patriots and one of the best offensive linemen. Could read up a little more on that. If anybody wants and is watching this, I'll just put the link to this document right there in the description, so you can click on it if you want to, go through and read this in more depth, or obviously you could pause the video. I put Will Roaf for right tackle. He had basically kind of 2 Hall of Fame careers if you looked at it, with both, the Saints and the Chiefs afterwards. I believe it was, right? Yes, obviously it was the Chiefs afterwards. So in total, 11-time Pro Bowl, 9-time All-Pro, Hall of Fame, and College Football Hall of Fame. Will Roaf, great career. Now for the defense, I went with Bruce Smith at right end. As most people are aware, Bruce Smith is considered as one of the great defensive ends of all time, and is the all-time career leader in sacks. Bruce Smith, there he is taking down Marino, who was a division foe, and they faced each other a lot. And Marino, we'll talk about how he didn't really like playing against Bruce Smith. Seen some interviews with him. I have Deacon Jones for one of my 2 defensive tackles. Deacon Jones, 14 seasons, played with the Rams, Chargers, and Redskins. I didn't actually know about the last one. I knew Rams and Chargers. I didn't even know about the Redskins. Jones specialized in sacks and kind of coined the nickname the Secret of Defense. Considered one of the greatest defensive players ever. And And it says there the Times called him the most valuable Ram of all time. Good picture there of Deacon Jones. I have Aaron Donald still playing, and most of his career, I mean, his career with all the Rams and most of Deacon's career and what he was most known, I think, was the Rams, second Chargers, and probably third Redskins, which again, I didn't even know. Aaron Donald has been, see, it says it right there again, regarded as the greatest defensive player, one of the greatest defensive player of all times, and defensive player of the year, a record 3 times, tied with Watt and Lawrence. And Watt didn't make my list. If he would have, I guess you could put him at either. I consider Watt an end. He would have been at the other end coming up, but I went with Reggie White, who's right there with Bruce Smith. I mean, pick your poison. I actually prefer Reggie White of the two. I like to play a little bit better. I was also kind of a little biased here, but I still picked the best players of what I think because I had never really liked the Bills. This is one of the few years I ever rooted for the Bills at all because I wanted to see the Chiefs get eliminated, which hasn't happened yet. So you guys already know here, I'll be rooting for San Francisco in the Super Bowl. Reggie White had a great career. Eagles, Packers, Super Bowl against the Patriots. I remember him sacking Drew Bledsoe a couple of times in that game. So, yep, I'm sure that's mentioned some here. I wasn't really reading the article. I was just talking about it. And there's a good picture of Bruce Smith just shoving one of our offensive tackles out of the way. Just using a quick little right-hand maneuver, swim move, pushing him right to the side. Of course, outside linebacker, I have LT starting at my first outside linebacker. It's hard to say. He's not the greatest defensive player of all time. If not, I think my number 1 corner on this list, I would probably put with that title. Pick your poison. You need both of the pass rush and good linebackers, and you need a shutdown corner. It's hard to say, but I would probably go with LT as the best defensive player of all time. So I'm sure that's listed somewhere in here as it says, yeah, he's considered to be the greatest defensive player all time. So for everybody else, it said one of the best. His is the only one that actually says in his wiki here that he is considered to be the greatest. And there you go. But again, other people you could talk about, J.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, as we just mentioned in the 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. There he is going after Jim Kelly, who he beat in the Super Bowl of the first of 4 consecutive that the Bills would lose in the early 90s. I believe that was the 1990 Super Bowl. Scott Norwood wide right. And Bills lose 20-19, if I remember that score right. Middle linebacker, there was a few. This was kind of a difficult one. There's a couple. You could go back to Butkus. There was 2 good Steelers choices I could have went with here. There's quite a few, but I went with Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis was just the way he was fired up, the way he played middle linebacker, the way he elevated players. Ray Lewis was just a beast. Not much else you can say about him. And that encapsulates Ray Lewis. Great picture to pick up with that. And same with the other outside linebacker. I think there's no way you can't go with LT for one. The other one, I think you got 6 or 5, 6, 7 choices of quality people you could throw in there for sure. I went with Derek Thomas because outside of Lawrence Taylor, I think he was the greatest pass rusher I have ever seen as an outside linebacker. Maybe overall, but you got to take outside linebackers and defensive ends when you think of great pass rushers. Of course, you'll throw in some defensive tackles, some middle linebackers, but generally speaking, it's going to be the outside the ends and the outside linebackers that you think of as the greatest pass rushers. And Derek Thomas is certainly right there. There he is going after a division opponent, and it'd be interesting to look up the career numbers and just see how many sacks he has on Elway, because I'd be willing to bet it's quite a few. Maybe it says there, I think, did he have the record for sacks in a game? Yeah, instead of a single season game at sacks record, which I thought I remembered from when I was young watching him play. Crazy pass rusher. I have Deion Sanders, and that's the other one I would consider, in terms of either him or Lawrence Taylor, the greatest defensive player of all time. I don't know if there's other people that have him not as a top corner in the NFL all time, or second at least in their starting 2. My second one, I think there was 3 or 4 names. First one I didn't need to think about was like Deion Sanders. Boom. And everybody kind of knows his accomplishments and how freak of an athlete he was. And I think he's the only player, maybe doesn't say it in here, the only player I think to play, last line, to make him play in a World Series and a Super Bowl. Only athlete to play in both a Super Bowl and a World Series, which I remember that happened like almost the same season or season apart. So that's kind of the typical Dion image that I remember, and that kind of sticks in my head. And of course, where he was first drafted might be better known for his Niners days or his Cowboys days or what have you. But Falcons is where he kind of really took off, obviously. And I put Rod Woodson next. I mean, you can go with some real old timers here, obviously. Mel Blount gets consideration. Dick Night Train Lane gets consideration here. Even maybe Charles Woodson. There's certainly some other formidable second corners. Revis, even, more recently, you can go with guys like Revis, Law, maybe even Sherman gets in that discussion, or I would have to think a little more recent, but I have Woodson. And then for safeties, I don't know if there's really much argument with either of these. I mean, maybe some people will. I think these ones are pretty easy for me. Ronnie Lott, Sean's a strong safety. I remember watching him play, like, again, 14 seasons during the 80s and 90s. And I started watching football in like 85. I was pretty little, but I mean, I remember a lot, like coming across the middle and decapitating people. And of course, then it wasn't hard to go back and watch footage from a couple years ago. Like now, well, I mean, it's just as easy, probably easier now, obviously, with the internet. But my point was, it wasn't like it was 20 or 30 years prior. Like I could see his footage from 2 or 3 or 4 years prior, and those highlights were shown on, TV and stuff. So, but yeah, Ronnie Lott, beast. There he is, just kind of manhandling a guy that looks about half his size. And I have Ed Reed at free safety. I think Ed Reed is Ed Reed wows me. He was a great player. Physically, how smart he was, just how great he was. Teams just game plan differently when they played him. I think kicker, you could have quite a few, but Vinatieri, I mean, longevity, huge kicks, championships, overall points. Like when you add, so NFL's all-time leading scorer. I mean, just everything. And there's one of his Super Bowl winning kicks against Carolina there. The famous ones with the Patriots, at least. You had that snowball game against the Raiders. You had the first win against the Rams in the greatest show on turf. You had this one in between. The one after this against the Eagles, he had a game-winning kick as well. So lots of big kicks. Punter, I put William Ray Guy. Everyone just knows him as Ray Guy, so that's why when I had the initial here, I never even knew William was there. I've always only known him as Ray Guy, but yeah, I think he was the only punter ever picked in the first round, if I remember right. Yeah, so was the first pure punter ever to be drafted in the first round with the Raiders, who also was the only one to ever pick a kicker in the first round. Later in the 90s, I believe it was, when they picked Janikowski. Ray Guy. Honorable mention I put for kick punt returner, special team guy, Devin Hester. Then I put a little caveat, although to be honest, I already have Deion Sanders, who was also right up there, if not the best return man ever. So I don't even know if Hester would get it. And I put my bonus kind of partial and, in mind that he just retired. Team captain, exemplary player, and kind of the special team gunner, Matthew Slater for the Patriots with a long career. I threw him in there as well, but that's kind of my all-time team. And again, if you want to look this over or you just want it because it was kind of neat, I'll have the link to the document here in the description.